Hey, so this is a little backwards, but better late than never, as some people might say. Y'all, we forgot the intro. We forgot the intro, so we are doubling back. I think this is officially our 15th episode. Um, but when y'all hear this, this will probably be episode 3, maybe 4. Right? Exactly. So it's it's not necessarily in the correct order, but we've made it. We've got a little gotten a little feedback from some friends and listeners of the pod, and they said, "Where's the intro, y'all? Like, who are you guys? Where'd y'all come from? How'd this get started?" So we decided we would go ahead and double back and get a little intro going here, talk about how Men the Mind was started, who we are, some of our experiences, some of the things we learned, the foundation, and maybe what makes us qualified, if you want to even call it that, to talk on some of these subjects. So Nick being the mastermind behind all this, Nick, kick us off, man. Kick us off and tell us how we got to this point, how Men the Mind got started. Get the people something here.
Men's, actually, you guys might be aware of this, you might not. This works on 2 different levels. MEND were Miles and my initials. So Miles and Glaze, Nick Davis, when we were trying to start the MEND initiative as an approach for performance psychology and wellness. So that's where MEND came from. And we said, okay, cool, MEND the mind. It now has worked, even though we're still looking to get Miles a little bit involved. Man's just busy. But we still follow those initials. And so if you use Nat or Nat's last name with an E, I won't say that on air for you, Nat, or you use Michael, you use Nick, or you use Miles, or you use, his last name is the E. You still spell Mint.
You know what's crazy?
Mhm.
I never knew that. My middle name is Edward, so it still works. MEN, like this still works. It was meant to. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay.
So everybody's initials fit into on some level, which is wild. But
So free plug here real quick. Anybody in the future, when this pod blows up, if you want to get involved, hey, those are the initial and basic qualifications. All right. You have to have initials that flow with the pod. If not, don't even worry about reaching out to us.
Yeah. Could be Harvard grad, US Olympian. Do not have MEND, it's probably not going to work. It's really not a you thing. That's just us. We're very fixed in that mind. But yeah, and the whole initiative was the idea of applying the skills that we've learned through life, through sports, and through schooling to everyday life and to try to be a little bit better. And so I know I used life twice there, but how can we use experience to promote growth to the future? Might be a better way of phrasing that. And so that brings us to an interesting point of maybe we need to talk about our backgrounds. And so I'll try to kick it off real quick and I'll hand it back over to Mike. Who are we? I'm Nick. I'm from, I would say, Syracuse is home, up in upstate New York. And I ran cross country all of a year and 1 season in high school, and then went and ran at a D3 school up in Rochester, so University of Rochester, where they've got a really big research population, and it's super involved in all things neuro, whether that's cognitive science, psychology, or neuroscience. And so I was very fascinated with a lot of the research that went on there and just dove in with theories, research papers, got involved as a research assistant, which led to a couple really cool opportunities, one at Berkeley and then one at Yale, where I got to study underneath a couple of really, really brilliant minds and see how they went about the research process. And they really focused on the foundation being former research, interpreting it, using it to your benefit. So why does this paper matter? Why would I make a study out of this? What are the implications? And then the classwork that I was doing at Rochester built off that as well. And I think that's very similar to how we run the podcast, is taking either experiences, literature, or other people's passions even, and flipping that into what is the implication, what are the actual ins and outs of that, kind of like a intro method results section of a research article. But yeah, and then when I was running at Rochester, I struggled a lot with the mental performance side, which we have touched on in quite a few conversations, and we will continue to touch on as these podcasts roll out. But it was really cool to see how I could apply that to my own life and see what worked for me, what didn't work for me, and how I could mentally be a little bit more optimal in performance, especially in regards to running. But I would say all of life, relationships, things like that too. Mike, who are you?
Nobody important. Okay, when you put it that way, Nick, after everything you've done, man, I don't really want to follow that up. You seem pretty put together, man. But I know who you are. You can't trick me, Nick. No, man, I appreciate you at least tagging me in on this and asking me to join and be a part of In the Mind, and the growth I've personally seen over the past couple months since we've been doing this has been really awesome and fun to be a part of too, and really fun to be a part of. But I am Michael Hall. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Journeyed the roughly 600 miles after high school graduation to Florida State, where I ran track and cross country for 5 years. Redshirted my freshman year of track. I think I went straight through with cross country for 4 years. Redshirted my freshman year of track and had the wonderful and amazing opportunity to meet some phenomenal people, coaches, teachers, administrators, fellow student athletes, where it grew me, my tolerance, my understanding of what it meant to be a complete and whole person. I got involved heavily with our student athlete advisory committee at a local school level and conference national level. For those who don't know, Florida State is in the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. So met some awesome people at a few of our national conferences where we all got together, and whether it was worked on new legislation, worked on improving practice and competition experiences for student athletes, just anything to better the student athlete experience as a whole. I was also, I guess, at a local level or a school level, vice president for SAC a couple years, team captain for 2 or 3 years. So the experiences, they, from a student athlete perspective, stretch pretty far. And then outside of that, I also took it upon myself to get involved more within the school community, just outside of athletics. So Greek life in particular, member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated at Florida State University, and the connections and people that I was able to make and meet through there were awesome too. And I think the being able to blend the athlete experience and the what I'll call general student body experience was one that made me very appreciative for the resources that I was able to pull from, to utilize, to help grow my resume, to help develop not only myself but everybody else that I was kind of touching and running into, the circles that kind of ran adjacent to each other. It was again just a great way for a guy from Cincinnati, Ohio, who truthfully never really pictured going to college. I could honestly say freshman, sophomore year, it was a far off thought. Junior, senior year, as I started to get recruited and realize that I had or that I have a really I've been blessed with a great talent, and it has carried me much further than I thought I would ever be. So that has led to the work that I've done in the corporate industry, in the business industry, being in sales for a while, being in management in a couple positions. And that's actually how Nick and I met. I guess Nick, Natalie, and myself, how we all met. You all have heard, and if you haven't, you will hear on some of our future episodes. Fleet Feet is the common denominator. I'm sure we won't ever get away from that. And it is one of those things that bonds us and will continue to bond us. Y'all can't see Nat right now, but she's repping her Fleet Feet shirt. All right. She got her Run Tallahassee shirt on there. And that's where we met. And it's been really cool to have kept in contact with y'all. Our old bosses, Mackenzie and Tyler, who brought us all and kind of gave us that environment to be in together. So that is just kind of at a very 30,000 foot perspective, who I am, kind of where I've come from, and and hopefully gives us a glimpse of where we're headed as individuals, but where this pod is headed to.
Yeah. And I think that I'm going to be a testament to some of the experience that you've had in leadership and management, and kind of pushing people in a community towards being better versions of themselves. Because from day one, we have pushed each other just through conversation in a way where it's not super judgmental. We might play around, pick some fun here and there, but we really have pushed each other to understand each other's perspectives and learn and grow in a healthy way. And that was the beauty of Fleet Feet and why so many great things have come out of Fleet Feet, really Florida State. I could have continued my bio with, I went to Florida State for my master's in sports psychology. That's probably an important piece of information, especially when we talk performance domain, and then shifted out to do performance work with the Army now as well. But all of the environments that we have shared and been a part of down at Florida State have been a phenomenal platform for us to get to know the people around us, try to help figure out who they are, who we are, and really build everyone into that best version of themselves. I know that we implemented a lot of different strategies, whether it was intentional or it just wound up working and we later revisited it to say, how can we make this the best place that we can work? We're super fortunate with Tyler McKenzie, as you mentioned. Awesome culture that they set. And they really gave both of us, when we were in management positions, the ability to run the store our way and put the people first, which was a really nice emphasis that I think we carry over through a lot of the podcasts, and I think is missing from a lot of places too. But yeah, so I would attest to Mike not only being a phenomenal person to have in your corner, but a leader amongst men. He really can get the people going, and anywhere we walk around, he seems to know somebody, and they always have good things to say.
I appreciate that. And the sentiments are they're reciprocated, my man. I think we've spent plenty of time together. Like you said, we've plenty of time on runs inside the store, just hanging at the crib, whatever it was, bouncing ideas off each other, hanging out, whether it's one-on-one, other people in the room, and the way that Nick is able to steer a conversation. If y'all haven't noticed, Nick is a master at diverting, answering questions about himself and getting the route rerouted to somebody else. Nick will do that in a heartbeat. He'd be like, oh yeah, Mike or Nat, didn't you do X, Y, and Z? And he'll be talking to somebody else, but it had nothing to do with us. So, like you said, for me, I say the same thing for you. Nick is somebody phenomenal to have in your corner. If you need somebody to break the ice at a party, at a business event, just for fun, Nick, drop your number in the chat. All right, drop your email in the chat. Start running a little consulting business here and teaching people how to break the ice, because my man, you do great at it. And as a matter of fact, I remember, and you reminded me several times, our kind of first interaction at Fleet Feet, we got to talk about sports psych, and from a very, very broad perspective. And I would consider myself at the time adolescent young Michael. I wasn't too keen on the idea. I'm like, yeah, who needs that? Like, that's not that important. But I don't know if I ever verbalized that to you in particular. And I asked a question, and I think it's opened up the conversation really to where we are now. I asked the question, like, what does that look like for you all? What is sports psych? What is the meaning of it? What is the purpose of it? How are you all being taught to apply sports psych, not only in the sports world, but outside of that? How are you all utilizing that to create great people in the world in general? And so that has just opened up a ton of conversation for us to start at Fleet Feet, but for us to have now. For us to have now as well. So I want to ask that, Nick, like, how did you get started with sports psych? What was it that really drove you to stay in sports psych, and what is it that drives you to keep going with it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think I'm actually going to flip this into kind of what MEND is, because I think there's a lot of parallels here. I think it's cool to understand what behaviors and thoughts might lead to other behaviors and thoughts in the simplest sense of it. And so if you are constantly comparing yourself to others in your head and you may be beating yourself up, which is something that I did. This is where my start came from when I was running. I'm just very much in my head, these people are doing so much better than me. Like, I need to take a log off the fire. I'm not sure I can hold this to the end of the race. These negative thoughts led to a lot of burnout for me, and it did not lead to performing to the level that I wanted to perform at. And so for me, I was a stud in practice, showed up and really killed a lot of the workouts, especially my senior year. And by the end of the senior year, I was not making postseason on the team, despite definitely being good enough in practice to do that. And we had explored different things with my coach about maybe it's the nutrition, maybe it's maybe you're pushing yourself too hard in the workouts. And I was like, nah, I still got reps in the tank. That's what we're looking for, having those types of conversations. And ultimately it was, me talking to myself in my own head during the race. It really held me back from unlocking a lot of that potential. And a lot of the classes that I was taking at the time were teaching me strategies on maybe how to unlock that potential that I was missing. And so it became about driving understanding through conversations, through deep diving into literature, but just asking those questions about, if I do this, what will happen? If I do this, what will happen? What would happen if somebody else did this? Well, what if this changes, or what if you tweak this? And so a lot of what we do with Mend, and I would say it all centers around passion for me. I'm just super curious as an individual. I find joy in finding things out and raising that understanding. But Mend uses passion as an engine to growth. And so whether it's something that we're passionate about, or whether it's something that we pull someone on and they've got a topic, we've got a ton that are going to be coming out shortly about self-discipline. We've got different avenues within the field of psychology. We've got things on holistic health and wellness, some really cool ideas that someone is very, very passionate about. Even the next one that I think is slated to release after this could be running for something bigger than yourself, something that our friend Seth is super passionate about. And so diving in with that passion, understanding that it's about the passion. It's not to have a conversation. To have a conversation, it's not to check a box and get to an end goal. It's just to understand and to support other people in what they find that they're passionate about. I think that was one of my favorite things about our relationship is we are not necessarily interested in the same things, but anytime you come to me with something, anytime I come to you with something, we dive in with that passion and fuel that fire for the other person. Just because that's who we are. That's what we do.
1,000%. No, I think this is going, hopefully running parallel to the reason that Mend was founded and started. But I think that you hit on a good point about the passions that you have, and I wrote that down. And y'all will notice that throughout our episodes, we'll talk about quotes that we get to jot down and we get from each other. But you said passion is an engine for growth. I think that's awesome to have that and to think about it from that perspective. But like you said, you bring an idea to me, I bring an idea to you. It is not the place for either of us to say, no, that's a dumb idea. Let's not do that. And let's go a different direction. I think we are both very supportive of that. And that should be the reaction that you get from the people within your circle. Now, that's not to say don't be realistic and make sure that you're staying grounded in that idea of, okay, is this a real possibility? What does this look like practically? You need some of those people around to kind of give you that reality check. But I don't think that there should be anybody that you're running with who says, I don't think you should tackle that. I don't think you should try to do that. Like, you should have encouraging people around you at all times. And Nick, I can say you've definitely been that for me many a times. And I bring an idea to you and you're like, okay, what's the next step? Like, what are we doing? How are we going to accomplish this? And I think even more importantly, you challenge my thought process. And I think that's what Mend is meant to do, to challenge your thought process. If I bring you an idea, you say, okay, walk me through how you got there. Walk me through your thought process to this point and maybe what you're thinking about going past there. And as we've already, I guess at this point, backlogged or have logged 15 or so episodes, that is becoming a common theme for us. Like, what is your thought process here? How did you get to this point? And what does that look like moving forward? So again, the whole Mend the Mind, it might not be aiming to change you, but it is meant to challenge you. It is meant, like Nick said, to grow you and to get you to critically think about some of the choices, thought processes, whatever it may be that you're putting into your life and into your circle of people.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well put. I think that one of the bigger things that I've been really locked in on this year is this idea that you can make a change if you want to make a change, and we're going to throw ideas out there that you are more than welcome. If that puts wind in your sail and you want to go with it, go for it. But by no means is there a requirement to change. We have conversations, we dive in and explore things because it's fun and we want to understand how those things work. And that curiosity kind of fuels it. But there is no change that's required. There is very much the option of staying the same. And I hope that when we have the conversation, people take it at face value with that. And that, hey, man, this is just an exploration together with our guests about different pieces of life. And then, hey, what do you think? Do you think that could connect to work? Do you think that could connect to relationships? Do you think that could connect to parenting? Things like that. And we try to make those connections. And that doesn't mean that we have evidence and a lot of, hard data to say, yes, this is the way to go. But it is an exploration of ideas saying, where did you get this? What was that process, like you said, that led to it? What do we think would come from it if you kept going? Like, can we connect multiple pieces of literature and like kind of areas that we feel pretty confident in have worked for us, and exploring that. I also think one huge point that drives both of us a little bit crazy, but how many times you hop in a conversation or you hop into a presentation, even at work, and the topic is like, hey, stress is bad. And everybody's got something to say, and everybody's like, yeah, stress is bad. This is why stress is bad. Because, it's stressful when this happens. And, like everybody's got to throw their own like little bit into the fire to prove that, see, I know what's going on. What we strive to do, and I'm sure we do that to a degree too, to be completely honest. But what we strive to do is kind of say, yeah, okay, we all understand that stress is bad. What leads to stress? And what happens if stress happens over time? Like if we go from stress before and after, what's going on? And so can we lock in on the developmental piece that goes towards stress? Like, does giving people ultimatums lead towards stress? Does giving yourself ultimatums when you're making decisions lead towards stress? Really? So where do those ultimatums come from? Is there an earlier step? Would it be like a generational thing that's getting passed down through parents? Is this a thing where, like, I was in a leadership situation where ultimatums were really good in my last job, so I came here and I tried to use them, and that's just not clicking. But what are some of the other elements going on? Why is that important that stress is bad? Well, stress actually turns into these physical symptoms and can turn into, just having worse appraisal in the moment when you have a performance or you're under pressure to do something. And then how do we make a change? And that's one thing that especially later in these 15 episodes we've locked in on. But like, what's one simple application I can do this week? That's a question that we love. And if we don't ask it in these episodes, I encourage people to reflect on it. Is what is one little thing that they talked about that I can take away? You listen to a couple minutes, you listen to the whole episode, however long it may be. If there's one piece that you can take away, that's something that we are really happy to even be able to explore as an opportunity for you. And again, that doesn't mean you have to run with it. But we want to leave the door open and help people understand the ins and outs of why something may be valuable or why something may be a little bit more toxic.
Yeah, no, and you saying leave the door open to possibility is a perfect segue into, again, what our whole experience is meant to be. Like you said, it's all a web, it's tied in together. There are really endless possibilities. And we want to challenge people to look at, if I make this decision, what is this outcome? If I don't make this decision, what is this outcome? And how those become intertwined and what doors you can open for yourself, but also those around you in doing so. So again, it is, like Nick said, not meant to change you necessarily, but challenge you. Because when it comes down to it, you'll be the one who wants to make that change. If you are challenged enough, or if the challenge hits home, the right way, whether it's the question at the end of the episode, something one of our guests says, or something that we say. If that challenge hits home or that point is coming at you hard enough, you'll feel on the inside that maybe I can change this or try something different that leads to a different result. One of the episodes, I can't remember which one it was, I talked about getting stuck choosing what Kroger to go to, like something as silly as that. And so we're not talking about these significant changes, but it's very small incremental changes or challenges over time that potentially lead to change. Again, leaving that door open to the possibility of what happens if I do something just a little bit different today. Maybe change up my routine here. I stop at a different place on the way home. I take a different route to work. Just little things like that that we may not be thinking of all the time.
Yeah, I think you do that really well. It could be something as simple as that. It's just building those habits. And so,
Right.
one, talking about it coming from within you. Again, we open the door and I want you to know what's behind the door and I want you to think about it. And then if you want to do it, awesome. If you don't, well, now you know what's behind
Right.
the door. And that's
Right.
in the simplest terms. I feel like what we're trying to do is it'll resonate with you. And if it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's all right. There's no homework required to get to the next episode. There's nothing that you got to do. We just appreciate anybody who gives us any time out of their day.
Yeah.
And then similarly, when you talk about building those habits, those little things that we may pull away from each episode and things that you and I are working on, because this is not whoa, they're so smart. They're going to tell us what to do. We're trying to grow as well. And that's a big basis of these conversations is kind of exploring together. How can we get better too? Because, there's things that we're not good at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talking about, before we hopped on today, that trend from athletics still spilling over for me. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, so I'm up here, so I'm already preparing to come down here. And it's like, Nick, that's not a good mindset. Like, you literally get teachers on this. What are you doing? And so, it's a cool opportunity for us, and we enjoy the process of that as well.
For sure.
Because the more that you can get those little habits and tips and tricks to fire in your brain, right? The neurons that fire together are going to wire together. When those neurons wire together over and over again, things start to become automatic. It's the same way when you start trying to juggle a soccer ball. It's weird, it's complex, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Same way when you tie your shoes, same way when you start giving speeches. The more you do this, the more automatic it's going to come. And so even these little habits, like encouraging yourself to make a decision on Kroger or come up with a process to figure out which Kroger you're going to. The more you practice that, the less you're going to have to think about the decision, which is really cool on the high level of sports, right? Mm-hmm. Which we love going down the avenue of professional athletes. It's just everything's automatic. It's crazy how little they think about compared to me or you when we go try to do the same thing. They are so much more advanced in their thinking. And so it's kind of baby steps, right?
Yeah. In a nutshell for that, this is, and really maybe a nutshell for the whole thing. This is simply you versus you, and we are facilitating that conversation. We are helping to facilitate, and again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but to challenge the thought process. Like we are not intending this to be, like Nick said, we may not have all the facts, a ton of science or data behind it. These are just genuine conversations that we are having with our guests, with ourselves, about life experiences, something that maybe happened today or earlier this week, and that most people can resonate with. We guarantee it, and I wish I had data for this one, but I guarantee that whoever's listening to this, the journey that you're on, somebody has done this exact same thing before you. The path that you are walking down, there is somebody with a very, very similar experience. And you may not be stepping in those footprints the same way, the same direction every step, but somebody has roughly gone the way that you're going to go. And hopefully Nick and I can shed some light on that and encourage you to find out who those people are, and whether it's reach out to them, follow some of the ideas that they've maybe set ahead of you. Again, this is just you versus you, and we're here to be facilitators of that conversation, whether you have it with yourself or you choose to take it outside of that realm and you have it with your your best friend, your parents, a spouse, significant other, whoever that may be, whoever those people are in your corner. When you bring that, and I hope I'm speaking on this properly. When you bring that forward, hopefully it brings everybody else up with you. Hopefully you can be, again, the catalyst or facilitator, the same way that we're aiming to do that for you here.
Yeah, no, I think that you did it really well, and I'll kind of reemphasize a couple of the points, and then we'll get out of here because we're about where we were hoping to get to with that intro episode. To keep this shorter and sweeter because we can talk all day and it's a lot of fun. But that idea of you versus you, your only comparison point is yourself. There is way too much that's different between you and other individuals. And so for you to compare them to you, not helpful. For you to compare yourself to me and Mike, not particularly helpful. But if we can throw some ideas out and you can openly think about them and accept them, reflect, and come up with things you do or don't want to do, awesome. Like just having that thought process is really what we're all about. And so anybody who is open and willing to take the journey with us, we appreciate having you guys here. And to the other piece about like not only facilitating growth for you guys, but you guys facilitating growth for people in your life.
Yep.
One of the craziest things is for an environment to be super well off, the same behaviors that lead to that environment being well off are the ones that drive you being well off. And so even though you often don't have a ton of control over your environment, and you do have more control right over yourself, I can control where my hands are at, what I'm saying, what I'm thinking a lot more than I can control that about anybody else. It's the same behaviors and thought processes that drive that. And so, whether it's you that you're working on or the environment that you're in, hopefully these are applicable, and they foster a little bit of that growth and development that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I like it. Everything you said has been spot on. And one final thing, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to get in the last word here, but I think that us doing this intro 15 episodes in probably has a little more meat on the bone than had we tried to do this the first episode. I don't know if I could have talked about this for now 30 minutes. So again, that growth piece of the choices that we make, where we go, the conversations that we have, this is a real life example of it. This is unfolding right before our eyes because, again, 15 episodes ago, I'm confident that I would not have been able to talk about this long in the direction that we're taking this. Again, you're the founder of it. You got us going. You may have had some more content or would have carried this conversation a bit more. But I'm grateful for the growth that we've experienced over the past couple months. And hopefully our viewers in our circles are also grateful for it.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, me and Mike coming to you from the future and telling you this stuff works. So hopefully that's enough of a pitch to lock you in and keep you tuned for next episode if you would like to. And let's grow together.